You looking to stand out on track, give your sponsor some exposure, or create an eye-catching look for your team?
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside. Both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Six very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to SimSpeed Television and Barcelona in Spain for round number 5 of the Circuit Excel eSeries presented by Shannon's Insurance. We are at the Circuit de Catalunya, and we are gearing up for two 30-minute races for one of Australia's most popular one-make series, which has made the transition to the online world. Joining me in commentary tonight for the double 30-minute sessions will be David Haynes. And David, I'll tell you what, the championship situation for the Circuit XLE series after the previous round at Oran Park, it has tightened up considerably.
Yep, our previous points leader still is our current points leader, Ethan Grigalt, had a shocking 2 races, really allowed the rest of the field to close up what was a solid advantage he'd built out at the head of the championship standings. Really gives everyone something to fight for. We had some drivers break through for some race wins who hadn't won before, so it was great to see that. Really brought some excitement back to this series, which was already pretty exciting.
So tonight, as mentioned, we'll have a couple of 30-minute races. We will have a couple of qualifying sessions. We'll split the field up as we have done all season to ensure that the drivers are able to have some clear track and we don't have too much congestion during qualifying. First of the 30-minute races, the grid positions will be determined based on how everybody qualifies, and then for race 2, we invert the top 10 to come up with our starting positions. Let's have a look at the point standings. Getting into tonight's 5th round, we reach the halfway point of the season, and it's Ethan Grigalt who continues to lead the points, but his lead has been slashed. He's on 840 points. Ben Bargwana, who has been one of the big improvers of this series and has been consistently banking points in every race, he now finds himself in second position on the points table, 804 points for Ben Bargwana, so he's just 36 points behind our leader, Ethan Grigalt. Aaron Oliver in third position on 779 points. Tommy Saunter-Chun, who had a race win in the endurance race at Phelim Highland, he's fourth on the points table on 776. Very unlucky at Oran Park, Tommy Saunter-Chun. He missed out on points in the night's second race when he was unfortunately allocated into one of the wrong sessions for the night's second race. Ben Smith, who picked up a race victory at Oran Park, is fifth. And then it's Jack Boyd, Lachlan Maneef, Matthew Brunt, Dylan Burse, and Brock Feeney completing your top 10 in at the championship standings.
Of course, 300 points for each round on offer means that our 2 races tonight are each worth 150 points to win. With that in mind, there's certainly a lot of drivers within 300 points of the head of the championship who are mathematically in it still.
Correct. By my rough arithmetic, the top 8 drivers are all within 300 points of the leader, Ethan Grigalt. So he can't afford another round like he had at Oran Park. If he has another shocker, he will go plummeting down the points table. And in addition to our regular drivers who've been contesting every round of the series, we do have some new faces on the grid for the XLA series tonight, including Benny Grice, the son of Australian touring car legend and 2-time Bathurst 1000 winner Alan Grice. And we've seen that Benny's had some great results in the Excel series in Victoria in particular, and has also raced in the Toyota 86 and Saloon Car National Series as well. Here's the point standings, just for confirmation of how they sit at the moment. And Ethan Grigalt, he's had pole position for all 4 rounds so far, so qualifying has not been a problem, but got caught up in a couple of incidents in at the previous round at Oran Park. As we mentioned, got tangled up with another driver heading into turn number 1 in race 1, which saw him fire into the fence. Then race number 2, he had to start at the back of the grid and got caught up in an incident early in that race as well. So Ethan Grigalt will be looking to have a more trouble-free run starting from the front of the field tonight. We'll be bringing you images from Barcelona very shortly, but it is a circuit steeped in history. It's a circuit that holds rounds of the Formula One World Championship pretty much every year. It's a circuit that holds rounds of the MotoGP series as well. And it's also the track where the Formula One teams do all of their pre-season testing. So it is an iconic motorsport circuit. It's got a good combination of some fast sections, particularly the main straight, David, but it's also got some quite tight and technical corners as well.
Yeah, you always feel like this track is got 2 characters to it. There's the first 2 sectors of the lap, very fast flowing corners up and down the hills, and then the final sector, far more stop-start, contains a hairpin, contains some very sharp curbs and some very tight chicanes there that then lead you back onto the pit straight. I feel like the final sector of the lap just has a different character to the first 2. And of course, we are going to have a reverse grid race for race 2 today, inverting the top 10. So that's certainly going to keep it interesting as well.
In the previous round at Oran Park, we didn't actually have the reverse grid race because they decided that just given the tight and technical nature of the circuit that there was a bit too high a risk to be having a reverse grid for that round. But the reverse grid format returns tonight. We've seen that at events like particularly the season opener at Laguna Seca and also round 2 at Brands Hatch, that those top 10 reverse grid races have produced plenty of action, with some of the faster cars having to fight their way through from a bit further back in the pack.
Yeah, certainly shouldn't be a trouble around here. Like you said, FIA Grade 1 circuit, a long lap, certainly compared to Oran Park. Plenty of room for all of our TCR cars to spread out. And probably some good racing too. So the times from qualifying in the 4 different groups have been amalgamated as the drivers are then going to join the race session in that order for our race number 1. And we're hearing Ethan Griggolt once again top of the timing sheet.
So his perfect record in qualifying continues, and you have to say that it's been impressive. Probably not a surprise considering Ethan Grigolt's experience, and also the fact that he does drive for the Evolution Racing team, which is considered one of the front-running teams in the Australian sim racing scene. But Ethan Grigolt has also flagged his intentions to be competing in real-life motorsport. He's recently purchased the Hyundai Excel, which he's been preparing to hit the track in the real world. He ran in the Winton endurance race in the Excel series at the end of last year. So very much looking forward to seeing Ethan Griggolt behind the wheel of a real-life race car on a more frequent basis.
Certainly a lot of the drivers are going to have to look out if they've got Ethan Griggolt up against them. I think definitely a driver, a lot of potential, a lot of speed for him. So I'm sure he looks forward to getting out onto the racetrack soon as he can. In the meantime, what an impact he's making on the XL eSeries.
Just waiting for some pictures to come in from the Barcelona circuit. You can understand that obviously the series organisers are taking their time to make sure that the race service are configured correctly after the slight issues that we had last week at Barcelona. But looks like the session has been loaded up, which is good to see. So it shouldn't be too much longer until we start getting pictures coming in from Barcelona.
And there'll be a short combined warm-up session before we get into the race proper. Up until this point, our drivers have been in 4 different groups, separate from each other for qualifying. They wouldn't have seen everyone else out on track yet. Warm-up's the first time that drivers who might have qualified in different groups will then see each other out on circuit here at Barcelona. And of course, qualifying times from the different groups combined. And you have to say, quite a long pit straight here from the final corner down towards turn 1. I think the slipstream, far more important at Barcelona than it was a week ago at Oran Park.
100%. As we see, the drivers working to warm up their tyres and brakes and all of the other mechanical components on their cars.
Personally feel like the character of Barcelona is more similar to Phillip Island. High speeds, very long, loaded, sweeping corners. We saw tyre wear was a big factor in the 1 hour enduro at Phillip Island, and it looks like the Spanish sun is out. We've got high track temperatures once again for this round. Sure, it's only 30-minute sprint races, not expecting any pit stops, but still those long loaded corners, high speeds, and hot track temperatures, something to look out for, I imagine.
100%, and obviously no pit stops tonight, but tyre management will still be a factor. So there's the question of, do you go hard early and try and get yourself some early track position, or do you play it a little bit more conservatively and make sure that you've got something to fight with a bit later on in the race? And that'll be the dilemma that will be faced by our drivers in these TCR races tonight. I want to give a bit of a shout out to Brock Feeney as well. So he is part of the Circuit Excel eSeries. He is in the top 10 in the championship. Made his debut in the BP Supercars All-Stars eSeries as a wildcard entry at Spa on Wednesday night and managed to pick up a race victory. So well done to Brock Feeney on his achievements in the Supercars eSeries.
Now, these front-wheel drive touring cars do drive a little bit differently, but you'd have to say on the back of that performance, his stocks are pretty high at the moment, and we'll see how much of that speed he can convert here tonight in these front-wheel drive cars, like I say. And Excel races, no no surprise for them to see a big grid. Looking like we might have 50 drivers take the start of race 1 tonight, up from the 35 that we were allowed at Oran Park. Lachlan Manif already testing the limits in this warm-up. He's been much cleaner, I would say, during the race sessions we've seen so far in this championship.
One of the things here at Barcelona, particularly with such a long straight followed by a quite tight right-hand corner, is the potential for there to be damage on the opening lap. It will be a rolling start tonight, as it has been for all of the rounds of the Circuit Excel eSeries, but that massive field of cars approaching turn 1 and then having to slow down and quite possibly running 3 or 4 wide into that corner on the opening lap, that is a recipe for a bit of drama. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Hopefully we don't have too many cars damaged in that first corner.
Yellow curbs can be difficult around this circuit as well in places. Got a lot of names that we're used to seeing on your screen. Saw Ethan, Greg, Goltz. We've seen some of the drivers who've done very well in past rounds, just getting ready, finding where the limits are here at Barcelona. And I can tell you the track temperature is quite searing right now, 50 degrees Celsius there. So hot track temperatures, very slidey for these cars that are already at times a little tail happy. You need that to make a front wheel drive car rotate, but to what point do you take that? Fixed setup, of course, in Circuit Excel eSeries, so everyone running the same setup sheet.
That is hot, and that is going to punish the tyres, I can tell you.
We saw it was the front right tyres that were taking a beating at Phillip Island, that anti-clockwise circuit. Here at the clockwise layout of Barcelona, I think it's that front left tyre that is going to be in pain at the end of our 2 30-minute races, especially turn 3, famous as a very long high load corner. These cars are going to be taking it in 5th gear or so, just constantly turning. Jordan Caruso, top of the warm-up times right now, is going through that section of track at the minute.
So Jordan Caruso, who's part of the Evolution Racing team, seen him have some very, very good results, particularly in round 2 of the series at Brands Hatch, where he followed his teammate Ethan Griggolt home for a couple of 1-2 finishes in the Panther Race Fuels Audi RS3 LMS.
Correct myself, we're now up to 51 cars for race 1, which Not a whole lot different from 50, but still showing we are going to have quite a big grid for race 1. Hopefully that means it's close. Hopefully that means everyone gets someone to race and we see some action up and down the field. Got some drivers who we didn't see on the broadcast last weekend, didn't make the top 35, who I'm sure we're going to be delighted to see some of today, including Barry Ryan.
Yeah, great to have Barry Ryan from the Erebus Racing team as part of the field as we check out our grid positions for round number 5 of the Circuit XLA series, and we find that it's Ethan Grigault who takes his 5th pole position. Perfect record of pole positions for him so far. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by his teammate Jordan Caruso. Position number 3, he was a race winner last time out at Oran Park. That's Ben Smith. Jack Boyd goes from grid position 4. Then it's Dylan Burse out of 5th position on the grid. Matthew Brunt in 6th spot. Chelsea Angelo gets her best qualifying with 7th. And then it's Andrew Hobby back to Jordan Sinney and Ryan Casher completing your top 10.
Over the page of our very big grid, we've got Aaron Oliver in 11th. He's in a good points position, so he'll need to capitalise from that start. Ben Barguana alongside him in 12th. Brock Feeney, a name we mentioned earlier, 13th. Tommy Saunterchun in 14th. This is looking like a good grid. Lee Harrison in 15th. Sam Christensen in 16th. Dale Carpenter 17th. Darren Whittington had some exciting adventures last week. He's going to start out of 18th. Jonathan Bykoff in 19th. And Nick Scaife in 20th as the field get rolling.
It's a big field. We'll keep rolling. It is a rolling start. Lachlan Maneef back in 21st position ahead of Mitchell McGarry. Riley Burek in 23rd ahead of Scott Fontaine. Shane Nowich out of position number 25. Benny Grice in position 26 on the grid. And then it's Anthony Colin-Breezer who makes his debut in the series. Back to Luke Quist, Hayden Jericho and Bradley Packham in position 30.
Quickly through the remainder of the field, we've got Matt Horn, we've got James Simpson, we've got Lee Stibbs, Lachlan Ward, Scott Barlow, Will Longmore, Ryan Bell, Barry Ryan, as we mentioned. You'll see the remainder on your screens. The safety car is in. The field coming through the final corner, about to go green lock.
So it's Evolution Racing Cars on the front row of the grid, and it's Ethan Grigault who gets to set the pace of the start, and a nice start as well. It is for Ethan Grigault. Jordan Caruso under attack though. He's got cars on the inside, he's got cars on the outside. Down they come into turn number 1, and we all hold our breath to see if the field can make it through cleanly. Our leaders have all managed to get through without incident. It's a bit further back in the pack where we probably have a bit more of a concern, but nice start from Ethan Grigault, and he's already got a good margin over the remainder of the field.
Decisive stuff from Ben Smith right at the start to grab spot away from George Caruso, and the two are into each other. The two are into the wall. Jack Boyd there as well in the wall. Huge damage on the ERT car for Caruso there. Same two for Jack Boyd.
Goodness gracious me, they were side by side heading down into turn number 4.
Like Mercedes teammates.
Neither one of them wanted to give each other racing room, and they've both fired into the fence, so big damage for a couple of our key contenders, and they're both back in the pits. Their chances of decent results in this race seriously compromised. Let's have a look at the motive simulation replay to pick up what happened. This is looking a bit further back in the pack. Mitchell McGarry, Lachlan Maneef, and now we look back to this contretemps between Boyd and Caruso. Oh, so Caruso's lost it on the inside. He was on the extreme inside of the circuit. And
was trying to push Ben Smith along and might have gotten on the grass, might have gotten loose. The two cars there were racing very close indeed. And I have to say, Jack Boyd, totally an innocent victim in that one, just gets taken out from the side out of nowhere like a rugby tackle.
It's another example of the instability of the rear end of these cars under brakes on cold tyres. So Jordan Caruso, as he jumped on the brakes for turn 4 to make sure that he didn't rear end Ben Smith's car, the back end stepped sideways, and like you say, Boyd was very much the innocent victim.
So at the front, Ethan Grigault has 2 seconds trying to break that slipstream, trying to break that tow to the pursuing cars. Behind that, no one is enjoying a gap quite like that. Ben Smith we saw moved up into second. Dylan Burst has grabbed a couple of spots in the first lap, dodging some of that carnage. Matthew Brunt also up some spots, as are the drivers behind. Chelsea Angelo now up into fifth. Ben Barguana and Brock Feeney have made moves up, each gaining 5 positions into 7th and 8th respectively, so they might be ones to watch charging through the field.
It's an important race in the context of the championship here, because some of our contenders had qualifying performances that were less than ideal. Ben Barguana, he started this race down in position 12 on the grid. Good progress for him so far. He's made up 5 spots and he sits 7th. I said in the last round that Bargs Jr. always races better than he qualifies. That's proving to be the case once again tonight. As we say, Dylan Burst having a big attack on the back of Ben Smith, getting it to the crest of the hill at turn number 9. Can he get close enough for an attack down the inside under brakes into turn 10? Yes, he can. Here he comes. Dylan Burst up the inside. Ben Smith gives him room. Change in second position.
Great move on the brakes into that hairpin on the Grand Prix layout behind. They're battling. Brunt side by side with Chelsea Angelo, as there's a couple of drivers with damage returning to the circuit. Angelo still side by side. Around the outside here is going to lose out heading into this chicane, side by side, 2x2. Difficult to go too wide through there, and Angelo gets shoved out of the way. He's going to drop a couple of spots here. Unfortunately, was off to a great start. It's now tried to fight a bit too hard, dropped back. This is a great pack that could go on all the way to the end of race 1.
Bit unfortunate there for Chelsea Angelo, because in trying to make up 1 position, she basically got bundled back 3, because Ryan Casher, Ben Barguana and Brock Feeney were all able to get through. Andrew Hobby putting some pressure on Chelsea Angelo as they head down to turn 1 as well. And it's Sam Christensen who rounds out the top 10 at this stage.
Great close racing. I have to say it's pretty clean, pretty fair for the most part, especially up the front here. They are racing very close indeed. This battle for second, very evenly matched. Great move on the brakes by Dylan Burst, got him into second place there, but he's by no means shaking Ben Smith, who very fierce competitor. Brock Feeney, you had good things to say about him. He's in the middle of this pack.
Yeah, and the experience of racing in the covered thrust of the Supercars eSeries will have served him well heading into tonight. He's putting the pressure on Ben Barguana at the moment. Barguana in behind Ryan Casher. Ben Barguana, of course, is the closest challenger to Ethan Grigalt in terms of the championship, but we look at Ethan Grigalt. We don't look at Ethan Grigalt because he's gone. He has bolted up the road. His margin over 4 seconds after less than 3 laps. So he's establishing a huge margin over everybody else. Dylan Burst, we saw him making that move to second position on Benjamin Smith a lap ago, but Smith keeping the pressure on. And then it's Matthew Brunt, who now at least has a bit of clear track at his disposal, having cleared the car of Chelsea Angelo.
So from 4th backwards, it's what we're watching here, and it's a very close pack indeed. You can see Aaron Oliver in there almost playing some Morse code back of the driver in front. And it's exactly what we saw for Chelsea Angelo. You know, if you're racing in a pack this close, sometimes you step out of line to try and make a move. You might find yourself ending up actually going backwards. So you've really got to measure and time your moves. Brock Feeney's timed his for the pit straight here, but he just doesn't have a whole lot of overlap. Behind there, I think Sam Christensen was getting pushed along by Aaron Oliver, but they are going to go side by side into turn 1. Brock Feeney is going to grab a spot away from Ben Barguana.
Yeah, nice move there from Brock Feeney, and you can see there by just being forced slightly off the racing line and being slowed up at the apex that Ben Barguana lost a bit of momentum on the exit of turns 2 and 3, which has made him vulnerable to Chelsea Angelo, who's going to have a big look down the inside into turn 4. Angelo not quite close enough.
Position did swap behind though. Aaron Oliver grabbed one away from Geordie Sinney, I believe, who looks like he's either renamed the iRacing account or got his own, which is helpful for us. Still a couple of names that can trip us up if we fall into the trap of reading precisely what's written on the screen, but obviously enjoying iRacing enough to put that effort in.
So in terms of the championship, there are a couple of key contenders who are a bit further down the order than they need to be. Aaron Oliver's worked his way up into the top 10. That's important because of the top 10 reverse grid format that we have for race 2. So if you can't be fighting right at the front of the field, you absolutely need to be finishing inside the top 10 so that you can take advantage of that race 2 inversion. The other one who's a little bit further back than where we would have expected is Tommy Sorter-Chun. He's down in 13th position at the moment, so he has a bit of work to do to try and get himself inside the top 10 to capitalise on the race 2 inversion. Oh, and coming out of the chicane there, I think that was a bit of a sideways moment for Ben Smith. Might have just compromised his exit a bit because he's fallen off the back of Dylan Burst, as we see Matthew Brunt coming under pressure from Ryan Casher, and it's such a long straight here that the effect of the slipstream is very powerful. Look at Ryan Casher, look at how much he was able to close in because of the hole that's being punched in the air by the car ahead, and he will make the move down the inside, so that is position 4 for Ryan Casher at turn 1.
Yep, good moves, and Brock Feeney's right behind, who's also gained a lot of spots. Feeney so quick through turn 3 there. He's hooked up exactly the correct line. It's not a constant radius through there. It can be deceptive to find the correct racing line. Brock Feeney absolutely has it nailed.
This is one of the things that I really enjoy about watching these races with the TCR cars, is that even if you don't necessarily qualify that well, the difference between having a good qualifying pace and a good race pace, there is a fair bit of difference. So we are seeing some drivers who are able to recover quite well from poor qualifying performances, and Feeney does indeed pick up that position with a move down the inside of Matthew Brunt. So Brunt, just in this half a lap or so, has drifted backwards a couple of spots.
It was a great little opportunistic dive there from Brock Feeney. In the end, it was clean, but you don't see a lot of overtaking manoeuvres into turn 5. He might have had a little bit of the element of surprise on his side, but he certainly had the speed as well, as he made that move very clean. Did lean on Matt Brunt just a little bit, but that's all fair when you're racing Fender cars.
Ethan Grigolt's margin after 9.5 minutes of racing, 6 seconds over Dylan Burst. Ethan Grigolt also holds down the fastest lap of the race, a minute 56.8. The next best lap of the race set by Dylan Burst at a minute 57.7. So Ethan Grigolt by far and away the fastest car on the racetrack, but Brock Feeney continues his march forward. He's now up to position 4. He's made the move through on Ryan Casher.
Ben Barguana's trying to take a look at Matt Brunt there in towards turn 1. Going to be mostly side by side. Ben Barguana has the inside. They're still going to stay side by side, but Ben Barguana, I think, has just grabbed that one. Made it relatively cleanly there as well, as Chelsea Angelo explores the limits of the track here, and in the end might actually lose a spot from it. Aaron Oliver charging through the field every single lap. He's been gaining a position here, a position there. Brunt, Angelo, and there goes Oliver with the nose in front.
Well, Chelsea Angelo left the door open there a bit, didn't she? And Aaron Oliver didn't need a second invitation. He was straight up the inside. As mentioned, he's one of the players in the championship equation, so he needs to be gaining as many spots as he can and scoring as many points as he can in this race. So Chelsea Angelo, another driver who qualified pretty well, but in race trim has just been
quite wide
hung
there.
out a bit high and dry. And yeah, again, she gets forced wide. It's Andrew Hobby, Sam Christensen and Tommy Sorter-Chun starting to knock on the door as well. So Chelsea just needs to get back into a rhythm here and try and stop surrendering so many positions.
So many cars so close here in the top 10 that I think you get shuffled out of line, or you let the pack push you around, and it's just going to keep on happening. That's what's happened for Chelsea Angelo here. Lost one spot, lost the momentum, and then all the other cars behind just keep lining up to kick you while you're down. So I think Angelo has just a little bit of breathing room here to get back up to speed, get the focus once again, but it happens so easily when we've got 4th through to 16th, and you cannot find a clean 1 second of track anywhere between them.
And that was very tight there as well between Sam Christensen, Tommy Sorter-Chun and Lee Harrison. It was almost contacts between Sorter-Chun and Harrison coming into that final chicane. Thankfully they managed to sort it out and not bang into one another, as Ben Barguana attacks the back of Ryan Casher, and they almost head into the pit lane exit area right across the white line down into turn 1, and Barguana just manages to pulled the car up and grabbed the position, but that was right on the edge of defence there for Ryan Casher.
Yeah, they were almost headed for the short national circuit for a second there as well. There was one car width left to the inside, and Ben Barguana went for it in the end. Good job on the brakes and turn in. A smooth move. Chelsea Angelo still a boxer in the ring here.
And down the inside, Andrew Hobby. So Hobby and Angelo have fought over that position for the best part of a lap now. And I think the position will finally go the way of Andrew Hobby as the battle between Christensen, Saunter-Chun and Harrison continues just behind as well. Tommy Saunter-Chun desperate to try and get himself up inside the top 10. He's still got just under 17 minutes to make his way up into the top 10 so that he can make the most of that reverse grid inversion that I talked about previously.
Yeah, great battles here, but a bit further up the road, somewhere along, Ben Smith has grabbed second. Ben Smith and Dylan Burst have traded positions back and forth a little bit here, so these guys are still close.
So you're right, Ben Smith back ahead of Dylan Burst. So whether that was Burst making a mistake somewhere or just that Ben Smith's got the better time life at the moment, is a bit further back in the pack. We've got a bit of drama here with Bradley Packham. Jordan Caruso back out on the track as well by the looks of things. Obviously after a fairly lengthy spell in pit lane for repairs, he is down in position 50 is Jordan Caruso, and he is 2.5 laps down on the race leader.
Good move there by Peter Clark. There's a couple slightly worse for wear, slightly wearier looking cars down the field here, but certainly the racing still very, very passionate. Got one of those Evolution racing cars trying to recover up the field, and further up the pointy end, Whittington absolutely involved in some of this battling as well. Tommy Saunter-Chun in there as well.
And Tommy Saunter-Chun coming under pressure from Jono Bykoff. So Saunter-Chun's dropped back a couple of spots as well. He was up in 13th position a couple of laps ago, but he's been relegated back to 15th position. So not ideal circumstances for Tommy Saunter-Chun at this stage of the race.
Yeah, indeed. Tell you what, I'm loving the racing that we're having here at Barcelona. It has been very, very close for everyone in our top 15 and clean for the most part as well. So this track and these drivers turning it on, great to watch. A little bit of traffic in front of Ben Smith and Dylan Burst. Less of a problem here at this big circuit than it has been at some other slightly shorter tracks we've visited. But certainly it's still a possibility with more than 50 cars out on track for a 30-minute race.
Indeed, and unfortunately we did have a couple of incidents, didn't we? Particularly at Brands Hatch, where we had some of the back markers getting involved in incidents with our race leaders, which is never what you want to see. Here is Aaron Oliver, so he's continuing his charge up through the field. He started outside the top 10, Aaron Oliver, but he has been making very, very good progress up the order. He's now 6th, and he's putting the pressure on Ben Barguana. So in terms of the championship, this has been very, very important progressive drive through the field for Aaron Oliver, that's for sure.
Yeah, certainly this is proving to be an important race at the moment, with Ethan Grigalt in the lead, Ben Smith trying to fight over as many points as he can grab, and a lot of our other drivers who are in the hunt, in the fight for the championship, being in and around the top 10 as well.
This battle continues between Andrew Hobby and Chelsea Angelo. They've been at it for a number of laps now. Ryan Casher's just ahead of them, so he's fallen back. He's lost a few spots as Angelo going to go down the inside. Lee Harrison's going to have a bird's eye view of that. They rub panels, Chelsea Angelo and Andrew Hobby. Lee Harrison will get a very good exit from turn number 7. Turn number 5, I beg your pardon. And almost gets up the inside of Andrew Hobby, but not able to get alongside. And Andrew Hobby wants that spot back You can see the car of Ryan Cash just ahead as well, but Andrew Hobby's entry was narrow at turn 7, and therefore he wasn't able to get the exit from the corner that he needed, which means he loses the spot to Sam Christensen. Lee Harrison putting the pressure on as well. And through the middle comes Dale Carpenter. This is cracking racing. This is very similar to the sort of stuff that we see in real life Excel racing.
I was just thinking
the momentum up and cars banging doors and rubbing panels.
Yeah, I've been watching a couple more of the onboards, and this sort of 3 wide, everyone in the pack stuff is absolutely what a lot of these drivers are used to and what they look for in a little bit of racing. We've seen some drivers leaning on some others in places, but I don't think there was anything unfair about it. Definitely saw Hobby trying to lean on the bumper of Chelsea Angelo to return the favour, but it did not work out, and Hobby ends up dropping a couple of spots there.
Oh, it's on here as well. So Brock Feeney's been caught by Aaron Oliver, who has obviously made the move through on Ben Barguana. So Aaron Oliver up into position number 5. So we see Chelsea Angelo squabbling over positions with Ryan Casher and getting the job done on Casher on the exit of turn 3. Battles everywhere you look in the pack here, David.
You gotta love it. So Brock Feeney had made his charge up through the field. Maybe the tyres are going away from him.
Contact with Aaron Oliver.
Aaron Oliver on the rear bumper of Brock Feeney spins him around. Feeney makes a bit of contact with the wall. Maybe not a whole lot of damage, but my goodness, that's no good for Brock Feeney.
That's an interesting one, that one. Obviously, they were battling pretty ferociously over position on the run into turn number 4 there. And Aaron Oliver was on the outside, and it was as he turned across to try and get to the apex that he made contact with the rear bumper of Brock Feeney, who was on the inside, and it was unfortunately Feeney who got turned into the wall. So that moves everybody up a spot, except for Brock Feeney, who gets forced backwards many, many spots.
Ben Barguana gives Aaron Oliver a little bit of the Morse code on the bumper into the hairpin, reprofiled from the historic circuit to the modern Grand Prix layout. Whether that's an improvement is still a matter of taste, but this is fantastic. We're well into the final stage of race 1, and it is still absolutely glued together stuff. This is what you expect to see in the first 5 minutes of the race, not 20 minutes in of green flag running. And Lee Harrison gets some help, gets straightened up. They're 3 wide in the final corner. He gets lent on again. These guys are indeed racing ridiculously close.
Dale Carpenter and Andrew Hobby in the wall on pit straight. They were side by side coming out of the last corner. They've made door-to-door contact, and unfortunately they've gone into the fence. So unfortunately for Andrew Hobby, who was up fighting in the top 10 a couple of laps ago, it all started when he was battling it out with Chelsea Angelo, but he kept getting shuffled further and further back. And unfortunately, he's now ended up in the wall.
That's tough for a couple of our drivers there. But they were trying to go 3 wide down the pit straight, and once you get into the rear quarter panel of another car, the pit maneuver is easy to do, even accidentally. So that's unfortunate for those drivers. Does elevate some other drivers up some spots. Our big winners have been Aaron Oliver, Ben Barguana, and Sam Christensen as well. I'm going to try and take a look at the replay for this one, and the Turbo Brisbane car of Jonathan Bykoff in the middle of the road there just gets a little bit of help into the wall, and he finds maybe a break in the concrete on the pit wall there, snaps him horribly, and then out of sympathy, all the panels fall off later on.
Yeah, that was big contact as those cars ran door to door. Now, the other interesting thing that's happened in all of this is that Tommy Saunter-Chun, by virtue of just staying out of trouble and not getting caught up in any of those instances, now fighting for a position in the top 10. Now, this is critically important here because he is, as I've mentioned, one of the main championship protagonists. He's 11th at the moment. He needs to get ahead of Sam Christensen to get that all-important final spot in the top 10, because the difference between finishing 10th and finishing 11th in race 1 is the difference between starting 1st and starting 11th in race 2, and Tommy Saunter-Chun grabs the spot. So Saunter-Chun up to 10th, Can he hold on to it, though? Because he's got a hungry pack of cars right behind, including Dale Carpenter and also the recovering Brock Feeney, who will be fired up after that incident with Aaron Oliver a couple of laps ago.
And behind them, Sam Christensen and Lee Harrison leaning on each other a little bit down the pit straight. We've seen how that can end sometimes, but it stays clean. They all keep facing the correct direction. You're exactly right how sought after that 10th position is going to be. 11th is no good. You want to move up into that top 10, make great work of that inversion. We've seen that if you can get clear of the rest of the pack here at Barcelona, that is worth an incredible amount. Greg Galt with a 10-second lead. Ben Smith and Dylan Burst, who've broken away from everyone else in second and third, have really enjoyed having a little bit more clean space and real estate to work with. These drivers who've been stuck in this pack, they're just battling each other and they've remained stuck together as a pack, it would appear.
Tommy Sortachun not out of trouble yet, not by any stretch of the imagination, because Dale Carpenter is right on his tail, and Brock Feeney is going to be closing in rapidly as well. We saw just how fast Brock Feeney was in the early stages of the race. So this battle is well and truly worth keeping an eye on because of its significance when it comes to setting up the grid positions for race 2. And here comes Carpenter down the inside, makes light contact with the rear bumper of Tommy Sortachun. At turn 10, Tommy Sortachun gets forced wide but wants to argue the point. Fights back down the inside of Dale Carpenter, and Brock Feeney will capitalise and barge Carpenter out of the way, and he will move up into 11th position. So now it's Feeney's turn to attack Sortachun for that coveted final position inside the top 10.
Feeney's nursing a little bit of damage. You've got a feel for Christensen there. Absolutely pummeled out of the way, and more contact here. Dale Carpenter gets it very, very sideways, but front-wheel drive keeps the throttle pinned, and bravery leads to adhesion, and he keeps the car facing the correct direction.
Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. In any sort of front-wheel drive race car, if you do have a bit of a moment or a bit of a sideways slide, the best way to get out of it is to keep your foot buried in the accelerator and let the front end of the car pull you out of trouble. As we look a bit further up the order, the battle on the fringe of the top 10 has been so exciting. We haven't really looked at many of the other battles lately, but Aaron Oliver, Ben Bargwana, and Matthew Brunt continuing their fight over what will be positions 4, 5 and 6. So Matthew Brunt, who was getting shuffled backwards a little bit a few laps ago, has managed to make up some of that lost ground, and he's got ahead of both Bargwana and Oliver.
These guys fighting over the middle of the top 10, free to fight for whatever position they feel, because come the inversion of the top 10, they'll all be in just about the same place anyway. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, doesn't matter quite so much. Great battle that they're having, but it is important that they continue to pull away from the cars behind. Chelsea Angelo finally has a bit of clear space. I think she was too wide battling with someone the first 23 minutes of this race. Now she's had a clean lap in, and I'm sure enjoying just being solidly in the top 10.
Indeed. Speaking of a driver who's got clear track, though, Ethan Grigault, his margin is now over 12 seconds over Ben Smith. He's had a tough last couple of rounds, Ethan Grigault. Phillip Island made the decision in the endurance race not to change tyres during the compulsory pit stop. That proved costly at the end of that race, but it was nowhere near as bad as Oran Park, where he had an absolute shocker and came away with a very meagre points haul from that weekend, which dropped him back into the clutches of his championship rivals. Here's a good battle. Wow, Ryan Casher forcing Jordan Sinney all the way into the grass on the run into turn number 1. Jordan Sinney not too happy with that and gives Ryan Casher a bit of a bump just to let him know that he's not too happy with those sorts of defensive tactics.
Tell you what, it's kind of fitting though to see the Dirty Diggers car kicking up the dust and the dirt on the inside there. Move didn't quite stick, but great to see these guys battling hard over 8th and 9th. Got just enough time in hand that they can afford to fight it as Sinney goes to the inside in turn 4 and then loses out a bit on the exit. They can afford to fight over 8th and 9th here, but they can't afford to drop out of that top 10. Where they're sitting right now, they'd start 2nd and 3rd for race 2. Be a great place. Jordy Sinney, elbows out.
And what we're starting to get a good feel for here, David, is which drivers have done a good job of looking after their tyres.
Fantastic point to make. I've been looking at the timing screen, and your leader, Ethan Gregolt, maybe he's not the greatest on the tyre management. He's certainly very quick. His best lap of the race, a 156.8. His last lap, a 159. The tyres have dropped off 3 seconds a lap, and that's true up and down the field for everyone.
In saying that, though, Ethan Grigolt's still punching out lap times that are almost a second quicker than any other car on the racetrack. So, yes, you're right, his tyres have faded, but so have everybody else's. All of the other runners in the field are lapping in the 2-minute bracket, except for Matthew Brunt, who punched out in 1 minute 59.6 last time around. So Matthew Brunt, the other driver who seems to have done a pretty good job of preserving his tyres.
And if the weather's anything similar in race 2, that might be something interesting to think about. Is if you just look after those tyres a little bit in the first half of the race, they might still be worth a second a lap more than everyone else in the second half of the race. It really comes down to where you find yourself in the pack, as we've got 2 wide here with Barry Ryan into the hairpin in the final sector. You might have grabbed a spot over Hayden Jericho there. Well done.
Barry Ryan, of course, the team manager of the Erebus Motorsport Supercars team. Great to have him along as part of the Circuit Excel eSeries tonight. Running inside the top 30. Oh, and he's going to pick up a couple of spots here, Barry Ryan, because there's contact between the 2 cars that were running immediately in front of him on the racetrack, including Mitchell McGarry and Frank Hodak.
Yeah, the racing's been exciting in the top half of the field. In the bottom half of the field, it's been exciting, but maybe not quite as clean. And that's an example of some of it here. A big move there. Sam Christensen moves Carpenter out of the way. And I think it's Lee Harrison who decides to capitalize on that one. These guys are going to go side by side once again. Who has some tyres left? Well, they're not going to have to last too long because Ethan Grigolt's about to start the final lap of the race, I do believe.
So in that all-important battle for the coveted final spot in the top 10, I don't want to put the mocker on him, but Tommy Saunter looks like he might just about be safe. There will still be a bit over a lap to go for him at this stage, but he has managed to pull a bit of breathing space over Brock Feeney, and Tommy Saunter, another driver whose lap times are not too bad at the moment. So even despite the fact that he's been in the cut and the thrust of the battle packs, he's still done a reasonably good job of looking after his tyres.
Yep, so Feeney in 11th, trying to look for 10th place, but as you can tell, time has expired. White flag waved last time around. All these guys starting their final tour of the circuit for race 1, the first half of proceedings tonight, Circuit XL eSeries. The heat on the track might also be getting to the cameras around the circuit as well.
Tommy Saunter will have a bit of a chance to have a crack at Ryan Casher on this final lap, though, because looking at his lap times, Ryan Casher's tyres gone. He's lapping a second slower than all of the cars that he's around at the moment. And Brock Feeney, another driver who I think is probably struggling a bit with tyres. We saw that, obviously, he had that incident where he clouted the wall earlier on, and that might be affecting the performance of Feeney's car as well. But we saw that very big charge from Feeney in the early stages of the race, and I think that might have compromised his tyre life a bit also. And a bit more drama a bit further back in the pack. But
Anthony Colombrito.
Anthony Colombrito, who makes his debut in the series. We've seen that Anthony has done some racing in the New South Wales Formula Ford Championship, and along with his brother Tim Colombrito, some racing in the New South Wales Pulsar Series as well. But Ethan Grigolt, as mentioned, some adversity for him in the last couple of rounds, but if you want to bounce back in style, there's no better way than to do it with an absolute annihilation of your opposition, and that is what Ethan Grigolt has delivered in race number 1 this evening. This, by any stretch of the imagination, has been an absolutely crushing display of driving, and it's a dominant race victory for Ethan Grigolt, his 4th of the season in the Circuit XLA Series here at Barcelona.
He drove away on lap 1. He let everyone behind fight and battle. He finds the handbrake into turn 1 in celebration there. And Ben Smith looks like he's going to get second, Dylan Burst for third. Only a couple battles inside the top 10 to come to the line, including Brunt and Aaron Oliver. And Tommy Saunter-Chun is going to get that final inversion spot and will start from pole in race 2. See what he can make from that. One of our title contenders. These guys are going to battle here into the final corner and a drag race to the timing line.
And Nicholas Scaife will just hold out Riley Buick in that contest there. So, out of the main championship contenders, so Ethan Grigault, the championship leader, he won the race. Obviously, he will extend his championship lead. Ben Bargwana, second in the championship, fifth in the race. Aaron Oliver, third in the championship. Fifth in the race. Ben Bargwana was sixth in the race.
Barry Ryan and McGarry side by side in the final corner. And Barry Ryan, I think, having to check up a little bit here. He's going to lose that spot. Might lose another one to Caruso. No, he'll hold on to that one. But adventurous last couple of laps here for Barry Ryan.
Indeed, Caruso obviously a lap down. Just running through the rest of the championship contenders and where they finished in the race. Now, Tommy Saunter-Chun, the other driver in the top 5 in the championship, in position number 4. They finished 10th in the race. So just to kind of complete the point that I was making a quite long and roundabout way of getting to, the top 5 drivers in the championship all managed to finish in the top 10 in the race. So that's important in terms of the championship picture.
Yeah, very much so. It means all of them are going to be still within our top 10 for race 2 after we do that inversion. Here's how they finished. Ethan Grigault, your winner, in a race that was 16 laps long. He finished nearly 15 seconds ahead, almost a second a lap faster on average than everyone else. Ben Smith in second, valuable points for him. Dylan Burst in third. This guy's kind of skipped away. Matt Brunt in fourth there. Aaron Oliver ended up with fifth. Ben Bargwana, sixth place. Chelsea Angelo in a bit of an island there in seventh between some of the battle packs in the end. Jordy Cini there in 8th, Ryan Cash in 9th, Tommy Saunter-Chun, that very important 10th place.
Outside the top 10, Brock Feeney, he'll be ruining what might have been after that really impressive charge in the early laps before the contacts with Aaron Oliver. Lee Harrison in 12th, ahead of Dale Carpenter back then to Sam Christensen. Andrew Hobby, who got belted from pillar to post, ended up finishing in position 15. And then it was Darren Whittington ahead of Scott Fontaine, Nicholas Scaife, Riley Buick, and Ryan Bell completing your top 20.
Over the page once again, Anthony Colombrita, we saw a little bit of, gets 21st, finishes in the top half of the field. Shane Novacki there in 22nd. Benjamin Grice, one that you said to look out for, in 23rd there. Scott Barlow, Matt Horn, Lachlan Ward, Mitchell McGarry ends up grabbing a spot from Barry Ryan in the final corner, and the closeness of the times reflect that. Reese Rowland in there as well as Hayden Jericho.
And we keep rolling down the order. Cassandra Hoare in 31st position ahead of Jared Curry. David Robotham in 33rd. He's the father of Jay Robotham, who's one of the regular competitors in XLs and Toyota 86s. Peter Clark in 34th. Canberra driver Dean O'Neill in position 35. Frank Hodak 36th. Will Longmore, the reigning New South Wales XL champ, in 37th. And then it was Matthew Hull, Jack Boyd, and Jonathan Bykoff rounding out the top 40.
Last couple of competitors, last car on the lead lap even, is James Simpson. And one lap off is Isaac Sparks, Edward Mitchell, Luke Fist, Lee Stibbs, Brett Matheson, and Harry Tompkins. Jordan Caruso, a bit of a race to forget for him. That unfortunate incident on lap 1, the bumpers getting locked together as they pushed each other along towards turn 4. Not how he would have wanted to start. Big task ahead of him for race 2. Then retirements here effectively is Lachlan Manif, Bradley Packham, and across the page in 51st, it was Scott Stevenson, who I don't think took the start. Might have only had 50 cars take the start there.
So there'll be some fast cars coming through the field for race 2, especially the likes of Jordan Caruso, who qualified on the front row, and Lachlan Manif, who's in the top 10 in the championship as well. Both of those drivers will have the pace to allow them to make up spots, but they're going to have a lot of hard work to do starting so far back on the grid for race number 2.
Yeah, indeed. We look forward to race number 2 coming up in a little bit with that tasty proposition of inverting the top 10 who fought so well, so closely in some very, very exciting battles in race 1.
I really enjoyed that one, particularly some of the door-to-door action and the battles that we saw involving big freight trains of cars. Really entertaining and just what we like, as I said, in our real-life Excel racing. What we'll do right now, though, is we'll grab a break here on SimSpeed TV. When we come back, we will be getting ourselves set up for race number 2, round 5 of the Circuit Excel eSeries presented by Shannon's Insurance.
Hey everyone, my name is Matt and I'm the creator of the Nugget Project, and I'm currently racing in the South Australian Circuit Excel eSeries. So I'm relatively new to the Excel racing world. When I started building my car, I had a look online and there was a bit of information about building these cars, but mainly regulations. There was no videos on sort of how-tos and I was bumbling my way through it, so I thought, screw it, I will film it and everyone can learn from my success and my mistakes. And that's how the Nugget Project was born. It was a bit of a joke at the start, and now we're up around, I don't know how many, we've got a couple of thousand followers and we've got a lot of views, and it's going pretty well. So now I'm delving into iRacing with a bunch of the other, well, pretty much every racer in the world I think has jumped to iRacing. I'm currently very much at the back of the pack and having a blast back there. There are some extremely talented drivers in this class, which is great because it makes me lift my game. But right now I'm starting at the back and I'm finding myself sort of midfield. Ever since COVID hit, obviously none of us can get out on the racetrack. And I think it's taking its toll on a lot of people sort of staying inside. So this idea from Maddie and a few of the other boys to get this class going and get a sort of a fixed Saturday night race is a really cool idea. Right now I'm stuck in my house. It's a great house, but I'm stuck in the house. I've got a 2-week-old baby girl who's awesome. But it's nice to have those few hours escape once a week to jump on the sim and get involved. All of us seem to have a bit of trouble with formation laps. Which is frustrating at times, but we're getting better, and I think everyone's new to this, and it's very hard to be in a car where you don't have a lot of spatial awareness and don't have a lot of monitors. Well, I don't, and a lot of people don't. Alrighty, let me show you around my racing sim. So you've heard from a few of the other drivers who are awesome, and they've got these wicked rigs with full wraparound screens and all that sort of stuff. Mine's pretty much on the other end of the scale. I built this sim a few years back for just Xbox, Forza, Project Cars, things like that. It's just a wooden frame, and I bolted my basic Logitech G920 in there with the pedals and the shifter. And then, as I seem to do, if anybody's watched my channel, they'll know I went a bit overboard, and I actually put the old interior for my Toyota Sora on this and then sprayed it all black. So this interior was pretty brown and I got a genuine black interior for it, so I put that in, and this is the old interior. I cut it up and somehow made it fit. And then one weekend I thought, you know, it'd be cool, a sequential shifter. So I adapted this this shifter, which is actually an eBay handbrake for a Civic. So I pulled the hydraulics out of it and put in some micro switches and then pulled apart my steering wheel and wired them in, and I've now got a sequential shifter, which is actually handy because my downshift paddle on the wheel doesn't work anymore, so I have to use this, and it's a little more genuine for the Audi TCR anyway. Also, we've got, you can see the little stereo amplifier there. That's just an eBay one, and I'm running a bass thumper in the seat, which is basically just the thumper out of a subwoofer with no cone, bolted to the seat, and when you go over ripple strips or hit another car or change gears, you get that thump to the seat, which is really cool. The computer I'm running is from our mate Ryan, who you would have seen on a bunch of Nugget Project videos if you watch. Ryan Lee, who's a sim racer, and he upgraded to some fancy pants system, and he had that sitting in his lounge room, and he goes, hey, do you want this? So I bought it off him, and now I've got myself a racing sim. None of this is helping me get near the front of the pack, but it's a nice place to be. I like it. Maybe one day I'll save up for some better pedals that actually have some feel, but for the time being, it's doing the trick. Due to all the wood and the interior on this thing, I think it actually weighs more than my XL. It is so heavy, and I don't even want to know what it's doing to the carpet under this. So there we go, gang. This is my little COVID escape, my little fortress of solitude. It's nice to get on a couple of nights a week and battle with you guys and girls and have a bit of fun. So I'll see you on the track as you come booting past. The little blue flash you went past, that's me. Give me a wave. We'll see you on track.
And he hits him again now. Rayon Fowler into the outside wall.
He's gonna pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's gonna get them all done with. What amazing!
Lee to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is gonna touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save!
Look to the outside as Trunke goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
Is howling down to the inside.
He's trying this contact though.
Slide left of the racetrack. Chris Benner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact. He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schumacher, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
We got big time problems with that motor, buddy. Hey, just between you and me, the idea is to avoid the other cars. Congratulations! You just set the sport back 30 years with that move. That move will put you in the Hall of Shame. You keep doing stuff like that and we're gonna lose our sponsor. Looks like that's it for us today. Now I know why you got canned by your old team. It's over. We can't fix that damage. Looks like your car is toast. You'll need a tow back to pit lane, press and hold your reset button, and we'll come and get you.
Coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson. Unbelievable finish. It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side by side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead.
Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Loma is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett Low. 4 wide at the stripe. For all his work here on this outside line, neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron, drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going in the outside. Both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys, I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?
You have tuned into the SimSpeed TV network for round number 5 of the Shannon's Insurance Circuit Excel eSeries. We've completed race 1 at the circuits of Catalunya in Barcelona in Spain, and we're getting set now for the top 10 reverse grid race, race number 2 of the evening. I'm Lachlan Mansell. Joining me in commentary is David Haynes. And David, a dominant race victory for Ethan Grigault, but behind him some fierce battles. It's only going to get more interesting now when we invert the top 10 grid positions.
Yep, I said it off air, I'll say it again. I think that's some of the best racing we've had so far in the Circuit XL eSeries, maybe excluding the last couple of laps, the closing segment from Phillip Island, which was fantastic to watch, but it was super close, multiple car packs, conga lines, if you will, but for the most part, pretty clean. Everyone had their head on their shoulders and their wits about them, about where they could be aggressive and where they needed to give a respectful amount of space. And we had that all through the top 10. So it eases some of my concerns about a reverse grid race to know that everyone we've got in the top 10 has had a pretty clean race 1. Hopefully we see the same again in race 2. And I think we'll have an exciting start to this race with the inverted grid, and hopefully those battle packs stay together, keep racing hard, keep racing fair, like we saw for almost the entirety of the half hour of race 1.
Agree with you 100%, and obviously Ethan Griggold was the fairly comprehensive race winner in race number 1. Now he has to start out of grid position 10 for race 2. Didn't prove to be too much of an obstacle for him the last time we had a top 10 reverse grid race, though, which was in round 2 at Brands Hatch, where he was able to come through from 10th on the grid to pick up the race victory. Now, one of the other things as well is that we had, during the break, we were having a chat off-air to Scott Fontaine, who's part of the SimSpeed team and who is out there racing tonight, and he said just how quickly the front tyres go away on this circuit, which pretty much reflects what we were talking about in the closing laps of race number 1. And even more so in the reverse grid race, if you're embroiled in a battle with other cars, preserving tyres sort of becomes a bit of a secondary consideration. So it's something that the drivers are going to have to be mindful of. And as we saw with some of the lap times that some of the drivers were still able to punch out in the later stages of race number 1, if you are a little bit more conservative and you can exercise self-discipline and you can look after your tyres early in the race, it will reward you later on when other people's tyres start to fall away.
And I can tell you the weather for race 2 is looking very, very similar to race 1. A very sunny day, beautiful in Spain here. So track temperatures very hot, going to be very punishing on those front tyres, particularly the left-hand front tyre, which is the outside tyre of some of the very long, very loaded corners around here. We saw definitely towards the end of race 1, the lap times dropping off as much as 3.5 seconds from the tyre wear. So yeah, we'll see who looks after their tyres, having learnt from that. But reverse grid, a lot of our top competitors aren't going to be able to think about that tyre management, at least in the opening stanza of the race. If you're Ethan Griggold, you've got to spend the first 5, maybe 10 laps thinking about getting yourself back to the pointy end of the field before you can take a breather, give some respite to those front Michelin tyres.
I think one of the other things as well is that out of all of the tracks that we've got on the calendar, this is probably, you would describe as being one of the easier ones to overtake at. You've got the long front straight, so that obviously sets up a nice slipstreaming opportunity, but then you've got some other passing zones around the track as well. We saw some moves happening in turn 4 in the previous race down at turn number 5, the tight left-hand hairpin. Turn 10 as well, that big stop at the end of the back straight, and we saw plenty of side-by-side action up through turns 11, 12 and 13 as well. So plenty of corners where cars can run side-by-side, plenty of corners where drivers can make mistakes, and therefore plenty of overtaking opportunities.
Yep, so the warm-up underway right now, and we, as you can see, are about 3 minutes away from getting race 2 started. Looking at Tommy Saunter-Chun here, driver who is going to start from pole position in race 2 by virtue of finishing 10th in race 1 and winning the lucky lottery in a way on that top 10 inversion of the grid for race 2. It's another little championship we kind of need to keep our eyes on that I've remembered as we're talking about tyres is the South Australian Excel competitor who finishes the highest at season's end is going to pick up a set of tyres from series sponsor SA Motorsport Tyres. At the moment, I think it's still Aaron Oliver in the box seat for that one. So you know, you got to worry about wearing out your tyres on iRacing, but you don't need to worry about paying for them.
That's a good point, and yes, you're right. Aaron Oliver's very much in the box seat at the moment in terms of the contest for the highest place of the South Australian competitors, and in fact, he's actually opened up his margin at the front of that SA Excel battle because of the disastrous race that we saw for Jack Boyd in race number 1, where he got taken out by Jordan Caruso on the opening lap. So Aaron Oliver in a very good position within that South Australian Excel contest at the moment.
Yeah, another top 10 finish, if I remember correctly, for him in race 1. So he's going to start in the top 10 for race 2. And yeah, we've got nationwide competitors in this series. And I think that might even be helping Aaron Oliver just put more cars between him and some of those fellow South Aussie competitors. Just helps him each race pick up more points advantage compared to the other drivers who can't finish quite as close to him because of the large and strong grid that we've got. We had 50 drivers take the start of race 1. As it stands at the moment, I'm seeing 48 ready for race 2. So we haven't lost many, and I think the racing will hopefully look very similar to race 1. We'll be very blessed if it is.
Riding on board there with Chelsea Angelo, who just made her way back into pit lane. Chelsea Angelo recorded her best results so far, finishing in 7th position in race number 1, and that means that she will get to start on the second row of the grid for race number 2. But for Tommy Sorter-Chun, really it's just a case of him putting his head down, making the most of the clear track at his disposal, and making sure that he steers clear of any drama that might unfold early in the race. We know that he's got the pace, Tommy Sorter-Chun. Let's not forget, he's already had a race victory in the Excel Series this season with the outright win in the Enduro at Phillip Island. Here's how they'll line up on the grid. Tommy Sorter-Chun on pole, Ryan Casher alongside him on the front row of the grid. Then it's Jordan Sinney out of position 3, back to Chelsea Angelo in 4th spot, Ben Bargwana, grid position number 5, followed by Aaron Oliver. Then it's Matt Brunt in position 7, Dylan Burse in 8th, Ben Smith in 9th, and Ethan Grigault, our race 1 winner, completes your top 10.
Behind that, the drivers who weren't so lucky to get into the top 10 inversion, Brock Feeney had some absolute flashes of pace in race 1. He's going to start out of 11th with Lee Harrison for company in 12th. Dale Carpenter and Sam Christensen on the next row. We've got Andrew Hobby and Darren Whittington, 2 drivers who can be pretty quick. Fonte going to start out of 17th place representing New Zealand there. Nick Scaife then in 18th. Riley Buick in 19th. Ryan Bell in 20th.
Anthony Colin Breeder out of position 21. Shane Novakic in at position number 22. Back to Benny Grice in 23rd position. Scott Barlow in at 24th position. Matthew Horn in position number 25, followed by Mitchell McGarry. Barry Ryan in 27th, ahead of Reese Rowland, Hayden Jericho, and Cassandra Hall rounding out the top 30.
Got Jared Curry 31st, David Robotham in 32nd, Peter Clark 33rd, then Dean O'Neill, Frank Hodak, Will Longmore, Matthew Hull, Jack Boyd, and John Bykoff, 2 drivers who we know can finish in the top 10, going to need to work their way up. See the remainder of your grid on screen as the pace car pulls in once again, going to get racing momentarily.
So getting ourselves set for a race start. This is race number 2, round number 5 of the Circuit Excel eSeries presented by Shannon's Insurance. We're at the Circuit de Catalunya in Spain, in Barcelona, and it's going to be our race leader and our pole sitter, Tommy Sorter-Chun, who puts his foot down and gets us underway. He'll go side by side with Ryan Casher on the run down into turn 1, and a bit of bump drafting, a bit of side-by-side action as well as challenging for the lead on the inside. The car that started this race out of grid position number 3. A good start from Ben Bargwana. He's already moved up to 4th position. Not such a great start from Chelsea Angelo. She's been shuffled back a few spots already.
Big difference from the start of race 1 where Ethan Grigault got the jump very, very early. Tommy Sorter-Chun kept them all waiting. They went 4 wide on the pit straight coming towards the start. The pack is very, very close. Grigault gets turned halfway.
Dramas as well for Andrew Hobby, who gets forced out into the gravel trap there at turn number 4, so he's been bundled off the road. And like you say there, Ethan Grigalt copping a bit of a hit, and you can expect that the drivers are going to make it difficult for Ethan Grigalt. They know how dominant he was in race 1. They're not going to want to make it any easier than absolutely necessary for him to make up positions in race 2. But it's Tommy Sorter-Chun who's done exactly what he's needed to do and got to the lead in the early stages of this race.
Top 3 are as they started on the grid, but Aaron Oliver's moved from 6th to 4th. He's looking absolutely menacing. Geordie Cini, Dirty Digger's entry to the inside of Kasha at the hairpin makes it work, and looks like Ben Smith's gained some positions but ran very wide at the hairpin. All very, very close stuff. Couple cars making contact further in the background here as Aaron Oliver gets a little tap, but he's moved up into 2nd place. Great charge at the start of the race.
Oh, fighting hard, and down the inside, Jordan Stinney gets into the side of Ben Kasher as well and gets turned. The 2 cars make door-to-door contact. Ben Smith goes almost into the pit entry to try and avoid running into those cars. Here comes Brock Feeney on the outside. Oh no, you could tell that was going to result in big drama. Jordan Stinney gets turned around, and Dylan Burst had nowhere to go in that one. Some dramas on the opening lap coming out of the final corner, and that's caused significant damage to both of those cars.
Not a clean start. Matt Brock doesn't look happy.
Oh, Matthew Brunt as well at turn number 1. He was on the grass as he reached the turning point for that corner. Couldn't get it stopped and ended up firing left into the fence. So there we go. 3 of the cars that started this race inside the top 10 involved in some opening lap damage. We're right on board with Ethan Grigalt, who's back in 11th position. He fell to as low as 15th on the opening lap. And look at just how much congestion there is back in the pack here. This is what Ethan Grigalt's going to have to deal with if he wants to win this race. Down the inside, big move into the hairpin. And gets the spot on Anthony Columbrator, who runs extremely wide at turn 5.
Bit of a yo-yo for Colin Breeder, as you can see. Started out of 21st, made his way into the top 10. He's lost a couple spots there, but the car still looks clean, which is more than can be said about quite a few cars out there after that particular race start. Sorter-Chun has made good on his pole position, trying to break away. Aaron Oliver, great work up into 2nd place. Ben Bargwanna in 3rd, trying to follow with him. And Ryan Kasher gets just a little bit of the hip and shoulder in this battle here to Sam Christensen.
Well, that was close, and there was definitely contact between those cars when they got down to the turn number 10 hairpin, and that might work to the advantage of Ethan Grigalt. Those cars checking each other up. Grigalt will be well positioned to carry the momentum through as he closes onto the rear bumper of Lee Harrison. Like I said, all of these drivers are going to make it very difficult for Grigalt. They're going to be on the defence because they don't want to make Grigalt's job any easier than it needs to be. But the order at this stage, it's Tommy Sorter-Chun out in front by 1.5 seconds. Then it's Ben Bargwanna in 3rd behind Aaron Oliver, who sits 2nd. Brock Feeney in 4th. And then it's Ben Smith, Chelsea Angelo, Sam Christensen, Ryan Katcher, Lee Harrison, and then Ethan Grigalt completing your top 10.
Tell you what, it sure is difficult to find some clean track to run your lines unobstructed out here. It's showing what a close grid and large grid we've got for both of the races we've had here. Ethan Grigalt, the man who had all of the room to himself in race 1, fighting back up through the grid here in race 2, trying to size up Lee Harrison at the moment. Maybe go for a bit of an over-under, cross back underneath. If he can get to the inside here, that'll be a move well done, and I think that is some racecraft there.
And that's exactly what Ethan Grigalt needs to do here. There's still almost 25 minutes left in the race, so he doesn't need to be making rash or impatient overtaking manoeuvres. He just needs to be methodical. He needs to pick the cars off one by one and gradually claw his way back to the front of the field. We know that he's got the pace. We saw how dominant he was in the first race. So there's no reason to get impatient or be making unnecessary contact with other cars. Here he comes down the inside of Ryan Kasher. And Kasher's going to hang tough though, and we'll have the inside for the next right-hander. So again, making Grigalt work very hard for that position, and in the end, Kasher decides to surrender, tuck back in behind Ethan Grigalt.
He's got his own battle to think about now, trying to defend against Lee Harrison and trying to defend against Scott Fountain, Fonty of New Zealand, of SimSpeed TV, racing here. Didn't see a lot of him in race 1. I think he's having a bit of a cleaner race 2 so far. Now that I've said that, it's going to put the jinx on him, I'm sure. But I think now we've got a little bit more space in the top 10 or 20 cars, and the racing has definitely improved, and it's looking like it's going to be fierce again.
He's having a good run at the moment, Scott Fontaine, so he's worked his way up to 11th position. If he could bring it home in that sort of position, he'd be absolutely stoked. So we're going to look a bit further back in the pack. Some fast cars coming through. We talked about Jordan Caruso. He started further back than fullback in this race, and he's worked his way up to 18th position. So a really good drive up through the field for Jordan Caruso so far.
Indeed, he's mixing it amongst some other drivers who might have had a tough race 1, but we've definitely seen mix it around the top 10 otherwise. Caruso got Hayden Jericho and Mitch McGarry around, and Dylan Burse, very well done in race 1. Tough start to this race, doesn't appear to be carrying too much damage, and he is trying to pick off spots one by one again, get himself back into the top 10. I believe he picked up 3rd place, was it not, in race 1, so 14th, not quite where he would have expected to be.
Well, we got involved in that big crash with Jordan Sinney there coming out of the final corner. Dylan Burse was definitely the one who was less badly affected by that crash, and you're right, it looks like the damage to his car's not actually too bad, unfortunately. For Jordan Sinney, the damage to his car was a lot worse, and he's back in the pits getting his car repaired at the moment. Currently, or he's actually, he's still in the pits, Jordan Sinney, and currently scored down in 38th position. And Andrew Hobby, another driver who we saw in trouble on the opening lap, he has retired from the race altogether.
Here's the difference from race 2. From race 1. It's closing up at the lead. Aaron Oliver's started catching Saunter Chun, who had a good opening 5 or so minutes of this race, getting clear of the rest of the pack. Oliver's got a bit more speed at this point. He's dragging Ben Bargwanna, he's dragging Brock Feeney, and he's dragging Ben Smith along with him. And that is 4 drivers joining the party who we know have race-winning pace on their days. So it's closing up the top 5, looking at the lead here. I think Aaron Oliver is close enough to make a move shortly. Not close enough for turn 4, but even by the end of this lap, I think he's going to be within striking range. Might need to strike early, lest the drivers behind him also line up for a shot.
Well, we know that all 3 of them have got race-winning pace, but out of the 3 of them, Tommy Saunter-Chun's the only one of them to have actually won a race. Aaron Oliver and Ben Bargwanna are both yet to win races yet, despite the fact that they're both in the top 3 in the championship. Brock Feeney in position 4 hasn't yet won a race either. Ben Smith in position 5 did win a race in the previous round at Oran Park. Chelsea Angelo in 6th position, yet to win a race, but having her best round of the season so far. And then it's Ethan Grigalt, who's currently down in 7th position, but is continuing to punch out some very fast lap times and make up time on our race leaders. In fact, Ethan Grigalt with a 1 minute 57.0 has punched out the fastest lap of the race, and you can see that he's at the back of the shot there, starting to reel in Chelsea Angelo. So it won't be too much longer before Ethan Grigalt becomes very much a part of this fight for the lead.
Absolutely correct, because he might be down in 7th, but he's only 3.5 seconds away from the lead, and we saw him build a 15-second gap over the duration of race 1. So with plenty of time still in hand, 10 minutes done now, 20 still to go, Greg Galt is in a good position to move high enough up the order, get enough points to become this round's champion. I think the only other people who could really challenge him for that, Aaron Oliver, who's challenging for the lead but isn't close enough unless he's forced a mistake out of Saunter Chun. He might get his nose to the inside of turn 3. He can't force it.
He thought about it though, Aaron Oliver, and it was a big mistake from Tommy Saunter Chun in the way into the corner. He only just got it stops for turn 1. The good thing for Saunter Chun there was that he was still on the inside for turn 2, so he was able to keep Aaron Oliver at bay. And look at Ben Bargwanna, he's looking very racy now as well, sitting there in 3rd position, and this is dragging both Brock Feeney and Ben Smith into this battle, with Angelo and Greg Galt continuing to catch up as well. So it won't be too long And we'll have a freight train of 7 cars all fighting it out for the race lead. Again, reminiscent of what we see in real-life Excel racing.
Just seen a great move there from Ben Smith as he used the element of surprise over Brock Feeney into turn number 6, pulling out late, diving deep on the brakes, grabbing a spot away. So I think Ben Smith, Aaron Oliver, Ethan Grigault, your best chances for the round win here. Time's running out in a sense for Aaron Oliver because he was closing in on the lead, hasn't been able to strike just yet, and it's let that whole train get closer. In the background, Grigault has gotten past Chelsea Angelo.
Indeed he has. And again, there's the whole tyre management factor as well. So while these drivers are sitting in this big pack of cars all fighting against one another, you have to wonder how hard they're using up their tyres. A lot of energy goes through the front tyres on these cars. They're all front-wheel drive, obviously. Hot track temperature here at Barcelona. It's in excess of 50 degrees Celsius. And it will be seriously punishing those tyres over the course of the race.
Yeah, if you were walking across the track barefoot, you'd have to do that little dance like you're going across the car park to get back to your car or something like that. Very, very hot surface. And that plays havoc on the tyres. Oh, a bit of drama for Ryan Casher here. So he come together with, I believe that to be Lee Harrison.
It was,
so a bit of drama for those two battling into turns 1 and 2. Doesn't appear to be any damage to either car there. But Harrison definitely came off worse from it. Grigault, another position gained. He's gotten past Brock Feeney, who we know is quick, but maybe has just not got his head around the tyre management in these cars at this point.
And a clinical display from Ethan Grigault so far, but Brock Feeney wants to make a fight of it. He comes back at Ethan Grigault on the outside. It's going to put him in a bit of an awkward position, though, when they get to the next left-hander, and Ethan Grigault just makes sure that Brock Feeney doesn't have the track space to be able to hang tough there on the outside. So that's Ethan Grigault, another spot gained, and he's up inside the top 5.
Yep. 4 for the lead. On your screen here, Saunter Chun, Aaron Oliver, Ben Barguana, Ben Smith, and just joining the picture, looming ever closer, Ethan Grigault.
So Jordan Caruso, who started this race all the way down in position 46, is up to 12th. Been a stunning charge through the field from him. Another one who's made very good progress, Jack Boyd, who was involved in that incident with Jordan Caruso on the opening lap of race 1. He's come up from the back of the grid to 17th. So both those drivers really charging their way forward. Jordan Caruso, having got up to 12th, now has some clear track to put his head down and start punching out the faster lap times to rail in the cars ahead of him.
Aaron Oliver just tantalisingly close to being able to make a move for the lead, but wasn't close enough into turn 1. And it continues to just check up this pack here. Brock Feeney and Chelsea Angelo are going to join the back of the train in the battle for the lead. Aaron Oliver's looking just a little bit quicker, but unable to find a way through. And might be a little bit of dramas, a bit of struggles for Brock Feeney as he started to drop back. He lost the spot to Ben Smith, lost the spot to Grigault. Now going to lose a spot to Chelsea Angelo.
Oh, Aaron Oliver starting to get impatient, shows the nose at turn 5 to Tommy Saunter-Chun, but still not the space to get down the inside. Ben Barguana well positioned to be able to capitalise. There's Ethan Grigault putting the pressure on Ben Smith as well. And Ben Smith will look in his rearview mirror and you'll see the Panther Race Fuels car right behind. But Ben Smith's still doing a good job. He hasn't had to drive off the racing line to defend his position from Grigault as of yet, and that's good. It means he's still able to carry the speed through. As here goes Oliver. He's had enough of sitting in second position. He makes the move down the inside of Tommy Saunter-Chun at turn 10, so we have a new race leader. They'd all been bottled up behind Tommy Saunter-Chun for about a quarter of an hour. Aaron Oliver's decided he's had enough. Time to put his head down, make the pass, and get himself into a position where he's got clear track.
Gone past the halfway point in race 2 and you still feel like it's anyone's game in the top 5, maybe even the top 6 or 7 here. Aaron Oliver, I think very, very critical for his race that he's managed to get through into the lead. Greg Galt's made easy work of a lot of cars so far, but he's now hit a bit of a brick wall, maybe with his tyre management, maybe with Ben Smith, who's a previous race winner as well, and to say nothing of Ben Bargwanna and Tommy Saunter-Chun aren't going to give up positions easy either. So I think this is Oliver's ticket. If he can let the guys behind fight, he can maybe just pull away, and fight they are as Greg Galt tries a move on Ben Smith. Ben Smith is just a bit too wise to it.
Yeah, good driving there from Ben Smith, even though Greg Galt was down the inside. Ben Smith held his line, held his nerve, and made sure that he had the inside for the next corner. At turn number 2, as Ben Bargwanna shows the nose to Tommy Saunter-Chun, and Greg Galt gives Smith a bit of a bump in the rear bumper, just to try and unsettle him, just to let him know he's there, as Bargwanna sends it at turn 5. Contact with Tommy Saunter-Chun, which sends Saunter-Chun sideways and out into the grass, and as Tommy Saunter-Chun swerves back onto the racing line, he will get overtaken by Ben Smith and Ethan Greg Galt. So that passage of play really has not worked for Tommy Saunter-Chun, and he loses at least 3 positions as a result of it.
And look, here's Chelsea Angelo solidly in the frame as well. If you're Aaron Oliver, seeing all this battling going on in your rearview mirror, you want them to stick at it. As Greg Galt goes for another move on Ben Smith down the inside of the hairpin. You want to try and break that draft, which Aaron Oliver hasn't been able to do in the lead just yet. I think Greg Galt has now cemented that move on Ben Smith, but boy, did it take 3 or 4 attempts. He only just got it done there.
Yeah, Ben Smith certainly made Ethan Greg Galt work for that one, but in the end, Greg Galt's managed to capture that position. But really impressed with this performance from Chelsea Angelo. This has been by far and away the most impressive performance that we've seen from her in the Circuit Excel eSeries. In fact, probably one of the best performances that we've seen from her in any sim racing competition so far. So, really, really good job from Chelsea Angelo. She's shown that she's had the pace to run solidly with the front pack all night, which is really excellent to see. Aaron Oliver, margin for him just under a second over Ben Bargwanna, but Ethan Greg Galt, the man on the march, he was as low as 15th position on the opening lap of this race, but he has carved his way back up through the field. He's now inside the top 3, and he's now in the box seat for the overall round victory, which if he can bring it home for the round win, it would be his 3rd round win of the season so far.
Did you get sent questions by the series organisers for an interview, and one of the questions was who is your money on to watch in the championship?
Yes.
I did, and maybe 2 weeks ago I said Chelsea Angelo, watch out for those drivers who are spending a lot of time in the TCR car, putting in their time on the sim, getting the practice in. They're the ones who are going to improve and come good in the second half of the championship. And now I'm almost miffed that hasn't gone out yet, so I could look prophetic. But great job Chelsea Angelo in 6th, thoroughly holding her own in both races so far.
So beyond Brock Feeney in 7th position, Scott Fontaine now up to 8th position ahead of Lee Harrison, Sam Christensen, Ryan Casher. There they are on screen. And just behind Ryan Casher is Jordan Caruso, who continues to punch out some fast lap times and close in. There he is, in fact, right on cue, right on the tail of Ryan Casher. So Jordan Caruso, again, started way, way down in position 46 on the grid. And here's the other car that has had to overcome some adversity as well. Jack Boyd, who started outside the top 35 and has worked his way up into position 14. So some big drives from some of the competitors a little bit further back.
Action continues up front here. We're watching Ben Smith towing Tommy Saunter-Chun, Chelsea Angelo staying in the picture as well. These guys and Chelsea are just starting to drop back from the top 3 a little bit as Aaron Oliver and Ethan Greg Galt show the kind of pace that they can have when they get just a little more breathing room. 3 wide in the battles and battles up and down the field once again. Aaron Oliver, his saving grace right now is that Ben Bargwanna is inadvertently playing rear gunner for him.
very true. Aaron Oliver yet to win a race in the Circuit XL A-Series. Ben Bargwanna yet to win a race in the Circuit XL A-Series, and yet they're both inside the top 3 in the championship standings by virtue of their consistent performances throughout the season. However, they do need to try and keep Ethan Griggolt at bay, because if Griggolt passes them and can notch up another race victory, he will well and truly extend his advantage in the championship coming out of this round. And you can see that Bargwanna is now having to start thinking about defensive driving, but he's not quick enough. Griggolt down the inside into turn number 10. As easy as you like, the Panther Race Fuels car moves up to second position.
There was a half-hearted defense there from Ben Bargwanna, and when Ethan Griggolt didn't follow that, when he looked disinterested, you knew he was interested in that move, and it was a great, well-timed move indeed. Looking back here, Ben Smith's trying very hard, big drift there, holding on to 4th place to try and keep Tommy Saunter-Chun behind. Chelsea Angelo probably thinking this is a great opportunity as well, as the guys are going to go too wide in front of her onto the pit straight door bang. Not afraid to share some Audi panels. They're going to be 3 wide, because sneaking up on the right-hand side, Chelsea Angelo is going to have the inside line into turn 1 as the fellas keep tripping over each other.
Big braking contest into turn number 1. I was about to say braking duel, but it's not just a duel because there's 3 cars involved. And in the end, it's Tommy Saunter-Chun who prevails, but he and Ben Smith both starting to get pretty physical in their combat from that position. And, Tommy Saunter-Chun gets fired off the road. You could kind of sense that that was going to end in tears, because even from back at that final chicane, they were banging doors, they were rubbing panels, they were making contact with one another, trying to unsettle each other. And in the end, it's Tommy Saunter-Chun who comes off a bit worse for wear out of that one. Ben Smith's fallen back as well behind Brock Feeney, and Chelsea Angelo, well, she was the big winner out of all of that. She kept her nose clean and she's moved up to 4th spot.
Yep, Angelo picking off Ben Smith, and then Brock Feeney saw the opportunity and he stepped through it as well. So that was fantastic opportunism from some of those drivers, and I think actually good work by Angelo to back out of that battle in turn 1. The other guys take each other out. She steps through into 4th place, but at the lead of the race, big dive from Ethan Griggolt for the lead. Calculated, but the numbers were just a little bit off. Aaron Oliver chops back underneath, back into the race lead, but it just goes to show with 6 minutes left, Griggolt made his way up through the field into second, but first is presently eluding him just for the moment, and he has to be careful here because Ben Bargwanna is still in the picture as well, as he skips happily across the curbs of the final chicane there. But it just goes to show you got to be careful how you fight if it puts you out of line and there's another driver just behind. So it'll be 4 laps to go, Lockie.
Ethan Griggolt, really good exit from the final corner. And Aaron Oliver's going to have to go on the defensive here. Ethan Griggolt pulls to the outside. Aaron Oliver moves back across towards the racing line. Hard under brakes into turn 1, and Aaron Oliver just about manages to hold on to the position, but Ethan Griggolt very fast out of turn 2. He'll try and go all the way around the outside, not able to do so. Switches back to the inside, but Aaron Oliver slows it up in the mid-corner and then positions it right down the white line. Ben Bargwanna there waiting to pounce as well. Here goes Griggolt. Can he go all the way around the outside through turn 4? Because if he can hold the outside line and get the overlap, he'll be well positioned for when they get to the braking zone for turn 5. Aaron Oliver having to exercise maximum defence at this point of the race to keep the hard-charging championship leader Griggolt at bay. We've had some big finishes in the Circuit XL A-Series this season. Looks like we're set for another big one tonight.
Oliver defending like his life depends on it, but can't defend the inside up the hill here. Griggolt back through into the lead. Oliver was parking it on every apex at every opportunity, but got a bad bounce off the curbs that's hurt him. Now it's Griggolt's turn to stay all the way to the white line at the left-hand side. Oliver, middle of the road. Ben Bargwanna on the normal racing line is just licking his lips saying, what are these guys going to do in the battle for the lead? How can I pick up something from it? And if they keep battling like that, honestly, 4th, 5th, and 6th are going to close them back up again. Griggolt when he gets into the lead, when he gets some clear space, no one can match his speed, but he's maybe, if anything, just suffered a little bit in this championship in traffic and with tyre management. But now he's got a couple car lengths. He can probably run his own lines now. He's had to fight for 26 minutes to get from 14th place back into the lead, but I think Ethan Griggolt is where he needs to be.
Yeah, great effort from Ethan Griggolt, and Aaron Oliver made him work for it with some nice defensive moves there, but in the end, Ethan Griggolt set him up for the passing manoeuvre and was able to make it at the top of the hill there, coming through turn number 9. So great job, Ethan Griggolt, back to the front of the field, where he spent all of the laps in race number 1. And we focus our attention back on the battle for position 4, where Chelsea Angelo is fending off the attacks from Ben Smith.
Yeah, like we said, track temperature's still searingly hot. Ethan Griggolt, his best lap in the 156s, is now doing laps in the 2-minute bracket. So is almost everyone else out there. So they are really starting to struggle for braking performance, for turn-in, and for opening the throttle on the exit of the corners. See some of that there as Angelo misses part of the apex, struggles to get the power down, but just not enough to open up the move for Ben Smith, who's right at the bumper. Angelo defending up the hill into Campsa.
Ben Smith, a fast exit, drops 2 wheels off the side of the extension there on the exit of turn number 9. But he will be well placed here to go for the inside move into turn 10. Angelo will try and hold station on the outside, but not a lot of grip out there at this late stage of the race with the marbles that will have built up off the racing line. So Angelo has to slot back in behind Ben Smith.
And if we know how fast the tyres are degrading, it's absolutely certain that they're throwing bits and pieces off the racing line. Another battle inside the top 10, Sonta-Chun and Lee Harrison. Sonta-Chun, your pole sitter, still inside the top 10, obviously finished 10th place in race 1, so even 7th or 8th would still be an improvement over that in race 2.
But he still hasn't quite had the pace tonight, has he, Tommy Sonta-Chun, compared to some of the other rounds where we've seen that he's been fighting within the top 5. Tonight, he only just scraped into the top 10 in race number 1. And although he made a fight of it at the front of the field for a while in this reverse grid race, in the end he's just been shuffled back, hasn't he? And he now finds himself fighting for 8th position. And in fact, Lee Harrison will get that move done at turn at number 3. So that pushes Sonta-Chun back to 8th spot.
Turn 1 on that lap was a great place to have a grandstand seat as Chelsea Angelo attacked Ben Smith, and then right behind that, this battle, Harrison and Sonta-Chun. Harrison goes quite wide in turn 4, but you need to get all the way clear to defend the inside for 5. Sonta-Chun can't do that. Wind the cameras back a little bit because Angelo had a fantastic run out of the final corner in the draft. Move to the inside here of Ben Smith, but Ben Smith just a little bit too good. Maybe he's not got the visor down like he did a week ago. He's just a great job on the brakes, sweeping around the outside of turn 1 to defend that one.
Yeah, it's been a good clean battle between those two drivers that's gone on for quite a while. We believe that this will be the second to last lap of the motor race, so our leader, Ethan Griggolt, will take the white flag this time around.
Certainly will. He's built 1.3 seconds ahead of Aaron Oliver, and that's just enough to start breaking that toe. So Oliver and Barguana might fight till the end. Sonta-Chun and the battle with Lee Harrison have had Jordan Caruso join the picture, and there is absolutely no doubt Caruso is this race's big mover, the hard charger, starting outside of 40th, now up into the top 10. 37 positions gained for Jordan Caruso in a 30-minute sprint race.
Love to see what he could do in a 60-minute enduro.
Depends what the tyre strategy is, but they might go 3 wide into turn 1. Caruso to the right-hand side, Harrison to the left. Sonta-Chun meet in the sandwich into turn 1, and swooping around the outside. Great job by Harrison, as there just wasn't quite enough room on the inside for Caruso. Chelsea Angelo, meanwhile, second time of asking, trying to get past Ben Smith into turn one. Looks like she might have made it stick this time.
This is one of those battles that's going to come right down to the last corner between those two. Neither one of them is going to give up, as we see that Jordan Caruso has made the move through on Tommy Saunter. Here comes Ben Smith back down the inside of Chelsea Angelo at turn 5, but Chelsea Angelo with the wider line will get the better exit from the corner. They'll still be side by side when they get into the next sequence of turns, and it's Angelo who just manages to stay ahead of Smith for the time being. Smith will be back down the inside into the right-hander at turn number 9. What a cracking battle this is between these two.
Road's a little bit cambered there as well. If you get wide of the preferred line, it's just a little bit off camber. It's similar to Griffin's Bend in a way. It's not going to dissuade Angelo from trying to go down the inside of the hairpin like it's the last lap, because it is. They're going to battle for everything they are worth here.
Yeah, absolutely cracking stuff between those drivers, but what a performance from Ethan Grigolt. As mentioned, some tough results in the previous couple of rounds of this series, but he has reasserted his authority at the top of the championship in fine style. It's a clean sweep, it's maximum points as Ethan Grigolt wins race 2 for round 5 of the Shannon's Insurance Circuit XL eSeries, coming from 10th to 1st in the reverse grid race. Fantastic performance from the Evolution Racing Team driver, as Aaron Oliver comes home in second position ahead of Ben Bargwana, and it's Ben Smith who just manages to hold out Chelsea Angelo in the contest for positions 4 and 5.
Jonathan Bykoff, another one of those big movers in this race. Horrible race 1 and a retirement for him, but he is going to hold on to 14th in this battle against Dylan Burse. That's 25 positions gained for Jonathan Bykoff, same too for Jack Boyd, who finished in 13th place. So those guys, a little bit of redemption in race 2. Dylan Burse, tough race 2, but he had a great result in race 1. He doesn't need this Audi after today, and he's not going to be able to use it based on that form. But yeah, cracking battles again in race 2. Excitement, start to finish. I think the format was just right for these cars and these drivers at Barcelona today.
It was, I mean, in the end, not an unexpected result, with Ethan Grigolt notching up a pair of victories, but in the second race, he certainly had to work very hard to get back to the front of the field after being shuffled down the order earlier on, which is exactly what we want the reverse grid format to achieve.
Last drivers on the lead lap see the checkered flag. 28 finishing on the lead lap. 29 finishing on the lead lap. I'll stop now. I'll stop. The numbers keep changing on me. But Ethan Grigolt, our winner, well-deserved, had to fight hard for it, and made some redemption from Oran Park, where he struggled racing in the pack. Here, dare I say it, he excelled at it. So Aaron Oliver gets second, Ben Bargwana in third, absolutely in the mix till the end. Chelsea Angelo, fantastic improvement, good result, holding on to fourth there ahead of Brock Feeney in fifth. Has Ben Smith appeared on this? Has he been disqualified or something? He's disappeared from the results after the checkered flag. We'll elaborate on that one maybe once we read down the results here. Lee Harrison then elevated into 6th, Caruso in 7th, Tommy Saunter-Chun then gets 8th place, our buddy Fonte in 9th, and Sam Christensen in 10th. Mystery of Ben Smith.
So we're hearing that the official results have got him down in 33rd, so not quite sure what the story is there. It'll be one for us to follow up, and no doubt there'll be some news in the Circuit XL eSeries Facebook group in the days to come. Ryan Casher in 11th position ahead of Jack Boyd, back to Jonathan Bykoff, Dylan Burse, Mitchell McGarry, back to Peter Clark, Will Longmore, Cassandra Hoare, Ryan Bell, and David Robotham completing the top 20.
Across the other page, Shane Novicky in 21st, Nick Scaife in 22nd, Dale Carpenter in 23rd, Harry Tompkins 24th, Matt Horn in 25th, Reese Rowland in 26th, Edward Mitchell 27th, Barry Ryan 28th per these timings, James Simpson 29th, and Matt Brunt in 30th. We'll read down the rest of the order here, Lockie, and then I have some news about Ben Smith.
So there is Ben Smith scored officially in position number 33 behind Matthew Hull and Isaac Sparks. We go back to Frank Hodak, Darren Whittington, Dean O'Neill and Ben Grice. Interested to hear what happened to Gricey as well, because he was running just outside the top 10 for a lot of that race. Jared Curry in 38th, back to Riley Buick, Hayden Jericho in position 40.
Last drivers here and into some of the retirements, unfortunately for Anthony Colombrita, who was running in the top 10 briefly and looking good doing it. Unfortunately, retirement ends up in 41st. Geordie Cini, again, another retirement, 42nd. Scott Barlow, Andrew Hobby. Unfortunately, we saw some good racing from him tonight, but unfortunately not the result he wanted in race 2. Luke Quist, Lachlan Maneef, Brett Matheson, and Scott Stevenson. Well, I can tell you, Lockie, that he doesn't appear on the official iRacing results there, Ben Smith, because he's been pinged for driving backwards on the racetrack after crossing the checkered flag. So it might lie on the series organisers whether they let his 4th place stand.
Yeah, all right. Well, that'll be a controversial one, and no doubt there'll be some discussion about that one in the days to come, that's for sure. But right now, we're joined in the commentary box by our dominant round winner tonight from the Evolution Racing team, Ethan Grigault. Ethan, welcome to Central Commentary here, and it was a tough couple of rounds for you prior to tonight, but what a great way to bounce back with a pair of race victories.
Yeah, it's not a bad way to start off getting back into it after having a horrid Oran Park. So, yeah, just drove away in the first one relatively easy, and the second one was where all the interesting stuff happened, which was good fun.
What happened at the start of that second race? Because we saw that you got shuffled back to about 15th position, and then you had to fight your way back from there.
Yeah, I'm not quite used to doing rolling starts, so but being in the pack trying to get off the start, I got quite a bad one, dropped about 2 positions, and then I copped a couple hits from a few cars, and luckily, this being the front-wheel drive machine that it is, I just powered out of a full spin. So yeah, that happened twice, and I think it dropped back, yeah, 15th or I think 18th it said on my screen at one point, and then yeah, just managed to cut through the traffic. Everyone races real hard out there, so no one gives you an inch at all, so it's good fun.
Couple of big incidents happened in front of you in the early stages of the race as well. Were there a couple of anxious moments for you, making sure you didn't get caught up in any damage?
Yeah, look, I come around the last corner on one of those laps, and I saw a couple cars spinning on the inside, so I just stuck to the outside. And when you see that, you sort of look in the mirror to see what's going on behind you. And I looked up in front of me, and there was another car sideways in front of me. It basically made me screaming. So, yeah, that was a scary moment, but just made it out of that one. If I looked up probably a 10th of a second later, the car would be completely totaled. So, pretty lucky with that one.
Quite hot track temperatures in Barcelona tonight. How did the front tyres hold up for you?
Horrendously. Yeah, we're still doing qualifying pace, probably up to 5 laps in, and then by the end of the race, the tyres were off about 2.5 seconds. So, yeah, it might be a bit to do with the fixed setup as well. I know the toe settings on the front are quite aggressive. For any other race, would sort of dial that back a bit. But yeah, there certainly is a lot of drop off.
From the driver's seat, how does it actually impact on the handling balance of the car as the tyres start to go away?
Yeah, the car just tends to understeer a lot more. So I'm just making a lot of bias changes towards the back to try and get the thing to turn. But as you try and get on the throttle, just more understeer. Basically, this entire car is just...
So, obviously a really good bundle of points for you tonight. Next week, we head off to Monza in Italy for round number 6. What are your thoughts on that circuit?
I must admit, Monza is an awesome track, and I always enjoy when we go for a race there. So, yeah, I think it'll be a bit nuts next week with all the drafting, but quite easy to pass there, and it should set up for some good racing.
Looking forward to it. I think that if tonight's any indication, the racing there with the slipstreaming, like you say, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And just finally, Ethan, I'm sure there's some people that you would like to thank behind the scenes.
I just want to thank all the guys at ERT as always, and our sponsors, Panther Race Fuels, MIR Raceline, and Logitech Jeep.
Good stuff, Ethan, and congratulations on a fantastic night of competition. We've reached the halfway point now in the Circuit Excel eSeries presented by Shannon's Insurance. David, your final thoughts on the night?
I said it, race 1 is some of the best racing we've seen. Race 2 definitely followed the same theme, chapters from the same book in that regard. I mean, the quality of the racing, the space given has improved a little bit, and the racing has stayed ferocious, as Ethan has touched on there. No one giving an inch when they don't have to. So these guys are been battling each other hard. It's been close, and I think the quality of the racing has also stepped up a notch. Can't wait for next week at Monza.
Next week should be an absolute cracker. There we go, folks. That completes round number 5 of the Circuit Excel eSeries in Barcelona in Spain. Thanks for your company here on the SimSpeed TV network. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Lachlan Mansell. See you next time. Bye for now.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Section's very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God!